Welcome back to Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. It's been quite a journey to get to the latest electoral reforms on the table. It's not even a done deal yet because Parliament still has to approve the report of their select committee and find ways of implementing the changes they've suggested. Some CORD lawmakers feel shortchanged, and we know that the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly, which should have been the natural midwife for the reforms, has been rather cold about the whole thing. Well, today's guests, both from the Senate, are optimistic that the report will pass. Kipchumba Murkomen of Elgeyo Marakwet and one of Jubilee's negotiators, and from CORD, Boni Halwale of Kakamega, one of the CORD negotiators. And so before the break, we were on thematic area number 3. And one of the other things it talks about is that the process of recruitment of new commissioners be commenced at least 6 months before the expiry of their term. The IEBC Act be amended to include provisions on vacation from office by commissioners other than by way of removal from office in line with similar legislation. There's some controversy about this, wasn't there? Even in terms of the way that the numbers of potential nominees would be presented to the president. Take us through that.
Well, there was a controversy. The current law says that the president will have, is it 13? 11. They will have 3 to nominate 1 chair, and he would have 13 to nominate 9. Is it 13 to the 15? Commission. 15 actually, to nominate 9 to the commission. So we were working with that law. You know, the people are blaming Senator Orengo, very ignorant people. And
you come into the people blaming Senator Orengo before explaining.
No, but that's the explanation. Because they don't understand where we were coming from. We are coming from 15 people being given to the president for him to nominate 9 people. And so the CORD suggested that we should have zero-sum game. You have a panel of 9 panelists that we talked about. Let them interview and give the president 6 to appoint 6 and 1 to appoint 1. But remember, the history was that there must be a bigger team for balancing, a pool for balancing matters of gender and regional balance and so many other issues. Second and most important is to appreciate that if you have already trusted the panel that is going to interview the Kenyans, whether they are 10 or 15, the ultimate argument should be that, is that panel independent? Are they giving 15 independent people? So that when the president is speaking, he's speaking from 15 independent people. So we did these negotiations until, again, Boni, I must give him credit, was part and parcel of the people that helped us, agree. But I must also ask them to say that at every stage, there was a clear consultation of the principles on both sides. In fact, for the record, Senator Orengo was just a spokesman on behalf of all of us, 14 of us, with Senator Kiraitu. But each one of us, where there was political argument, Senator Orengo would have to call the principal, and Kiraitu would have to call principal on our side. And I can tell you without fear of any contradiction that every clause was consulted on, and that's why we agreed on 9 for the president to appoint 6 and 2 to appoint 1 as a way of compromise so that we can move forward.
Senator?
I think it should be left completely clear that Orengo does not hold any blame whatsoever, because this was the deal that almost broke the negotiations. I recall the last call we made to the core principles of Jubilee was minutes to 1 a.m. in the morning. And similarly, the president was awake. He was also being consoled by Kiraitu.
Consulted?
Consulted. And they advised us accordingly. It should be understood that the position of CORD was that we have 5 commissioners part-time. And the position of Jubilee, we have 9 commissioners full-time. So as CORD, we lost out on part-time. And as Jubilee, they lost out on numbers. So they came to 7, which was lower, and we gained by getting the fewer commissioners that we wanted. It was a win-win situation.
Otegi?
I don't know. There is disappointment by the president. There was very worried about appointment by the president.
Yes, that one of the chairman. Again, it was a very sticking point. To this extent, that the position was that we give the president, the selection panel gives the president only one name. But the position of Jubilee was that we give the president 3 names. So we struck to 2 and remembered the provision in the Constitution. The only commission where the president is not given discretion is the Judicial Service Commissions. The other commissions, the Constitution allows the president the privilege of choosing from names. So we didn't want to state now legal challenges that we have taken only 1 name against the provision of the Constitution.
Remember, we climbed down. The panel itself, under the law at the moment, is that the president was going to nominate 4 people to the panel. We denied him completely a role in nominating the panel because we gave it to certain institutions. That means, therefore, that he has no say insofar as interview and nominating, whether you give him 10 people or you give him less people.
He has to work within
he has to work within a pool of persons whom he didn't have a hand, in terms of selecting them.
You have mentioned Orengo. Sorry.
No, I was coming to you about whether you were satisfied. You had asked an earlier question about ICT and whether you were satisfied that the recommendations in this thematic area address the processes that would ensure a credible election.
Precisely. I think one of the most contentious issues was the issue of relaying presidential results. And now that you are entrenching into the Constitution, into a law, the issue of having the elections carried out in a technologically savvy manner, how is the presidential result going to be relayed? Is it from the polling station? Is it from the tallying center, which apparently, according to people in the election laws, say is nothing legal?
Surprisingly, the handling of the presidential result is clearly defined in the Constitution. I believe Article 86 of the Constitution. What was missing was a law on use of ICT technology in elections. So we have carefully provided for the same, to the extent that the presiding officer at the polling station will announce the results. And upon announcement, the results will be transmitted to the constituency returning officer, who will announce the collected result of the MCA and the MP for the constituency and declare them winners. Thereafter, he moves the results to the county tallying center, where the county returning officer will again collect and announce the result of the woman rep, the senator and the governor, and then declare them winners. Thereafter, he takes them to the national tallying center. I am carefully avoiding to say that the results will be changed by any of the centers that are tallying and therefore collecting the results. All that they are doing the arithmetic process. What is even more important is the provision in the law now of direct transmission of results to a national portal. The national portal. How it works, because members of the public might not be in the know, is, if I may remind members how you normally get the results of your daughter who has sat for class 8. The results are taken to a national portal. When you key in the index number of your daughter's number at her primary school, the results automatically come on your phone. So this means the votes cast at Marinya Primary School, if you key into the national portal, you will get what the presidential candidates got. Meaning, therefore, that everybody now will be a tallying officer. It is not the preserve.
The thing that people need to appreciate is that we didn't touch the manual way that the results go. I think the only change we made was to avoid president's results going to county. Once you are done with the results at the constituency, there is no need to take it to the county. We take 290 results to the tallying center. Remember that our voting is manual. So you go vote. If a vote is spoiled, it is manually cancelled, and then it's put in a box that is called spoiled votes. This one is called clean votes and so forth. When the returning officer reaches constituency level, he will have to make a determination on the spoiled votes and so forth. However, that can change the results by 1 or 2 or 3 people, depending on verification of that results. But it is announced at the constituency and taken straight to the center. Meanwhile, the provisional results are going directly from the constituent, from the polling station to. That's why you see when we were in Bomas, if that thing had worked 100% without the problems we had, you would see results changing, you know, at every given minute, because you are getting from Malinya Primary School, where he's talking about, where Senator Kalwale, and Chawis Primary School, where I come from, at the same time. If Malinya people are voting opposite and Chawis are voting the other side, all of them, the results will be now tallying itself as you proceed. If the technology will work seamlessly, you will not even need to worry about the results that are coming from the constituency, because they will be the same as, say, for 1 or 2 changes, if you have to make a determination on the manual results.
Coming from a low background, and when he says if, that is so telling.
It's important to put the if, because
not when.
The ultimate verification, because you can also still suppose someone was going to tamper with the technology, you know, itself. You have to have the physical Form 36 and Form 34, which we haven't changed in the Act, being delivered to the center at the national level. That is physically. Physically. That must be, the final results will be announced by the
and some will be delivered after 1 week because of rains and
it doesn't matter. It must be delivered.
Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with this?
The last thing I need to mention is that the voting, we have only provided for these coming elections for the verification of voters, for the transmission of results, and for the verification of voters and transmission of results, that it is electronic,
and registration
of voters electronic. But remember, the voting is manual. We have also provided for in the law that going forward, we must be able to now work towards an electronic voting in future, so that then in future you will not have any manual process, you will not have any paper. But for the next elections, we have provided that the voting will remain as manual as it is, but the verification, transmission, and registration of voters will be.
Are you now satisfied, Charles?
And on that manual aspect, we have also provided that at the polling station, the final result, which is then transmitted to the National Tallying Center directly, upon being signed through acknowledgement by the agents representing various candidates, that result is scanned. So you cannot change it.
Mutegi, are you satisfied?
I'm trying to ask about when you send the result directly, and when you say that it will be from the polling station. Isn't there going to be a contradiction when you take it from the polling station to the constituency, then to the county?
There is no contradiction. In fact, the two seem to check each other.
Absolutely, check and balance.
To this extent, that the result that you have taken to the National Tallying Center, and because it is being connected to a public portal, if somebody becomes mischievous at the county, for example, and attempts to alter, then the one at the National Tallying Center will contradict him.
Then now there will be a controversy. You know what we are trying to avoid? There is a belief in this country that when the results are moving from polling station to the constituencies, during the constituency, because someone has seen candidate X is ahead, now it's changed within the constituency. You add one figure there before or after 0, so that then it makes. What we are putting in place, and that's what Senator Boni has put it very clearly, is to have a checks and balance, a possibility of one to quickly say these results of certain places are already contested, and doesn't become part and parcel of the final results, because it must be checked why there is a contradiction between the ones that are transmitted and the final paper that when it comes as Form 36 and so forth. We are also trying to avoid the forms. The scanning process and sending the documents and so forth is to have an evidence, a written evidence of authenticating the final results, why they are contradicting the other, so that the commission at the national level don't have to tell us, I am announcing. You remember what Kivuiti said, that I'm only announcing what is here with me. He will already have something to counter-check with what he has been given.
And this was the former election.
Are we agreeing about the register? I don't know whether we get...
Actually, we're coming to that now, which is thematic area 4, and you talked about that to some extent. Recommendations on legal policy and institutional reform, again, towards free and fair elections in 2017. And you talk about the voter registration, saying that you will engage a professional, reputable firm. I think there was contention over the word international or whatever, to conduct an audit of the register of voters for the purpose of verifying the accuracy, that the audit be completed not later than November 30th, and that the Commission submits the audit report to Parliament within 14 days of receiving that report. You also say that the Election Act be amended to enable the Commission to conduct an audit, and that there should be some sort of alignment between the National Registration Bureau, Kenya Citizens and Foreign Nationals Management Service. So we come to this because this was quite an area of contention, and this is the contention really came from court, and it still exists.
Yes, it does. And what did we start from? The court position was that we want an entirely new voter register. The Jubilee position was that no new voter register. What are the gains? The gains for CORD are that whereas in quotes we have lost out in getting a new voter register, we managed to persuade Jubilee to climb down to accept that the current voter register be subjected to an audit. And the import of the audit, dear members of CORD, is that you get more than what you would have gotten if you got a new voter register. To this extent, if there are people, unscrupulous people, who had the means of manipulating a register so that it favors them, there's nothing that was going to stop them during the new voter register establishment from using the same tactics. Absolutely. So you gain to the extent that when the current voter register is subjected to audit, dead people who are rumored to have voted will be removed, underage voters will be removed, outright illegally registered people will be removed. So you get a clean document that would then allow the process to move forward.
There is a problem in this country. We don't need zero-sum game where there's an absolute winner. It's about the country must win. And that's really what guided this committee, that what is good for the nation is good for CORD and Jubilee. And that's why we ended up saying, if we go for new registration, and remember all the positions we took were driven by reason. We were not robots. I mean, we sat down and listened to experts and thought through the process and said, honestly, you cannot defend your party position even if it is against reason. And so we said, new register would mean you disenfranchise certain communities and places within this short period of time. You have nomadic communities, for example, trying to go and get them to come to polling station. You have people who work in different places of the country. You have people who have planned to come and vote and they are now working in Uganda, Tanzania, whatever other countries where perhaps we may not succeed to register people to vote in the next elections. Now the point is this, that we said we need the register to remain the register. However, nobody's interested in people who have died voting and all that kind of thing. That is why there's a provision there that says there must be harmonization on the registration of deaths and registration of births, and plus immigration and so forth, so that then you can be able to clean the register. We were told in our committee that the custodian in other countries of national data is the Electoral Commission because they need it more than everybody else. And so we say there must be a technological way of the committees institutions coming together. The second thing is that we must continue verifying the register. It's not just this one verification. The first one audit, that's why you have one that says Commission must continue doing the same. Even after the auditing of November, there are people who still die between November and voting.
Exactly.
So there must be a cleaning process continuously, so that by the time you are voting, someone who dies a week before voting does not vote, in whatever way. And that is why in the register, verification is biometrics. So that there can only be one person whose biometrics are there. We were told by scientists like Kalwale that once you take biometrics of any person, they are not the same as biometric of another person. And so we thought that's the best way to be able to ensure that we verify voters.
How did you deal with the issue of ID cards? because that was an area of contention, that some areas traditionally...
Procurement of ID.
Yes, you know, have no ID cards, and so therefore they're disenfranchised.
Yes, our responsibility was on electoral reforms, which we have spoken to. As far as IDs are concerned, it is a question of attitude. To this extent, in some areas, people go register to get IDs and they don't go to collect them. Who do you blame? In other areas like Central, for example, they mobilize better. Their people come and collect IDs. It is up to the political leadership of those areas where people don't go to take IDs to make sure that they mobilize them. What is important to me is that CORD supporters should understand that their greatest fear that in some areas underage and dead people are going to vote. Now with electronic technology, what will happen is that on 8th of August next year, in the morning at 6 a.m., before you enter into a polling station, there will be an electronic device that will identify you as a voter using your thumbprint, your iris, your retina, and the earlobes.
Will it work?
It's going to work because in the procurement of that technology, we have provided that political parties will play a role.
Senator,
just a minute.
Experts in law have indicated to us that electioneering starts from voter registration.
Yes.
One of the reasons that have caused hue and cry in the country is disenfranchisement among people. And they were given an example of Kakamega, where you come from, as compared to Kiambu. A few, just a smaller number of registration kits are taken to Kakamega as compared to Kiambu. Did you consider this?
We consider that, and I think this is something you need to appreciate, that we have provided the law that registration, getting an ID will take 30 days, the draft law, and replacing your ID takes 14 days. 14 days replacing, 30 days for taking a new ID. Now, that right will only be progressive if we don't provide money to the Registration Bureau. National Registration Bureau needs then to be given enough money to be able to continue getting IDs. But I can tell you, in Elgeyo Marakwet, just as is in Kakamega, if you go to the district registration office, there is a huge pile of ID cards that people are not picking. There's also the question, you know, you can't force someone to vote. There are people who will just say, no, if my candidate is not there, I'm not going to vote. Or this government has not voting has never benefited me in the last 30 years, let it go.
And you make a provision for that through voter education.
Yeah, that's why voter education, because you cannot force someone to vote. The idea here is that it is, like Bonnie said, that it is for the political players to show to their citizens, and for us to show citizens the importance of voting. And remember, it's not only here. Even in America, when Obama was running, there was a greater turnout for voters than any other time, because he mobilized the younger generation to come and vote. So it depends on the issues and the candidates that are playing a role in the political party.
And then the example of Kakamega and Kiambu is important. As Murkomen has correctly said, Charles, the problem was that fewer gadgets for registering voters were being taken to Kakamega. The reason given by IEBC was the issue of budget. So there's a lot of goodwill already. You have heard John Kerry announce that they are going to support us with 2.5 billion Kenya shillings. Hopefully that will go towards purchase of those gadgets.
But remember, for the first time in many years, the budget, the current budget, has the hugest allocation to IEBC. It never happened for the last, since we had an IEBC. So there is no excuse for IEBC saying that they did not procure the equipment and so forth for registration.
We'll take a break now. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. Will Parliament adopt the report and build on electoral reforms? The hashtag on Twitter is Cheche.